Okay, so it's been a week now since we had negotiations break down. Studios walked away and they said that the actors were asking for way too much in residuals, and the actors were like, you guys are clearly misquoting what we brought to the table. And all the momentum that we had from the WGA deal being, done and ratified kind of went down the drain because we were like, okay, now we're in this for the long haul. However, as we just hit the 100th day of the SAG-AFTRA strike, it looks like the studios are back, and they said, "Hey, we want you guys to come back to the table. We're bringing the big guns. We're bringing all the big CEOs like David Zaslav, Bob Iger, Ted Sarandos, Donna Langley, from like Netflix, NBC Universal. I think, Warner Brothers Discovery, and of course Disney, and all these big players who were there in the marathon negotiations that ended the WGA strike. It feels like sort of like a power move, but like whatever the case might be, that call was quickly answered by the actors union, and it looks like they're getting back to the table on this Tuesday, October the 24th. So I wanted to ask, Angelina, where do we stand here? What has changed in the last week, maybe, and what are the odds of this thing finally getting resolved?
I was honestly so surprised that we're coming back to the bargaining table on Tuesday. I'm so happy because remember, we were sort of speculating if they don't come back within the next few weeks, we're not going to have any sort of negotiation or settlement until January 1st of next year, which pushes this strike past something our economy can even handle. I believe it was Deadline had reported that this strike so far has cost the California economy upwards of $5 billion. And it's really taking a toll on California. I would say it's taking a toll on the actors, the writers. It's taking a toll on everybody. At this point, I think a lot of people are just so exhausted. I have so many friends that are working these part-time jobs that they absolutely abhor, just crossing their fingers, hoping they can make it through until the end of the strike. So everybody's super excited about the situation. They're sort of doing an all hands on deck strike for Monday. They have just really put out a call to action that everybody, every single actor, every single writer, all of the unions should come out and strike with SAG-AFTRA on Monday before they resume negotiations on Tuesday. As far as what's changed, it sounds like the AMPTP is sort of spearheading this round of negotiations. But of course, we thought we sort of had more of a final note last week when we went into negotiations and they sort of faked us out. So I'm hoping that the AMPTP is bringing a proposal that fits something along the lines of what they want as far as residuals go, or something at least what they're willing to do as far as residuals go.
Yeah, and it seems like what happened a week or so ago was basically that, well, initially when all of these negotiations began, residuals was a big issue, and especially regarding to streaming and how it's so dominant now in the industry today, and that's really where there's a lot of the disruption came from, and a lot of the reasons why there's a dispute. They can't reach a deal. So basically the actors came back to the table and said, hey, so if you're not going to like do like a flat rate kind of a situation where we just figure out a number, a percentage number, then let's do something that's akin to basically like you would pay us, like, let's say, depending on which side you believe, whatever number, whether it's 57 cents per subscriber, $1.02 per subscriber to all these streaming services, and that number, that amount goes to the union, and the union distributes it based on participation levels from the various members of SAG. That's something where basically the actors made a proposal, the actors union, and then the studio said, we're not even going to counter that. That is so ridiculous. We're walking away. And it felt like it felt a little petty on both sides in the aftermath of it, and how like everybody, they were like basically playing this out in the public eye. Yeah. And that's not the first time we've seen that over the course of these negotiations. But it seems like what has changed is that now the studios are back like, oh, we will counter probably, and let's get back to this, and we want to do this for the betterment of everybody. And there is speculation that they could maybe their course of action from last week to this week, given how quick the turnaround has been, was not entirely just because of the fact that, oh yeah, it's taking a bigger toll. Because I'm like, how much bigger of a toll would it have been taking a week from when you left the table? Like you probably they left the table knowing exactly where they would be a week from now. So it could be that these actions are premeditated in the sense to kind of maybe put the public
Like scare tactics.
yeah, like well, not a fear tactic, but maybe put the public perception in favor of the studios. Like maybe like they're the ones who are giving grace by coming back to the table and saying, okay, so we will reason with you, and you know we
Well,
won't
isn't it also the
counter.
AMPTP? Oh no, SAG-AFTRA made it very clear that it was AMPTP that walked away, right?
They did, and I
So
think it's pretty public that the studios are the ones who
I
left the
will
table.
say, all of the aftermath, a lot of people are pointing fingers at Fran Drescher and whether or not she's like really able to handle these negotiations. It's been really interesting to see. I mean, so many people in the industry comment on her mental incompetence is quite frankly what a lot of people have been saying. That's not how I feel.
She
I
just got reelected too. Like,
yeah, and I'm just like, that just feels really heinous, like really offhanded, considering I feel like she's been fighting for SAG in a way I don't think anybody has fought for SAG in a long time. So I do think that you're right in the sense that the general population conversing about this has been more in favor of the studios in the last like 2 weeks. It definitely is building up some like resentment towards SAG and how they've been handling things, but I don't necessarily think that that's fair.
Yeah, and regardless of whether that's fair or not, I mean, I guess if it is indeed like if again we are speculating here, this is just based on what we are seeing out, from in the news over the last week or so. Even if this is indeed like all like was part of the game plan of the studios to begin with, and to exactly get these kind of results, then obviously that's working, regardless of whether you side with the actors or you side with the studios or you're sort of just in the middle. You're just hoping for a resolution. Now, Bridget, I just wanted to ask you, like, where do you stand on this? What is your reaction to seeing this? Like, there was a tweet put out, a joint statement. As Angelina mentioned, there's going to be all hands on deck, in terms of picketing on Monday, the day before this happens, to really, mount even more pressure and in the public eye, as well as, of course, getting to the negotiation table the next day on Tuesday. We have, of course, had like almost a Taylor Swift era's tour's worth of damage done to the California economy over the course of the strike, with like the $5+ billion. That's a big number. And, that number grows by the day, by the week. We have seen movies like The Bike Riders being the latest of many, including Dune Part 2, move off the release schedule this year because of the strikes, because they cannot take these movies on the press tour without their actors, which is a big selling point. And you can't do late night shows, you can't do like promotional interviews, you can't do press junkets. So there's obviously a big impact here, and I think the studios are feeling it, and certainly the actors are feeling it. You guys can both speak to that. But what was your reaction when you saw this, literally a week from when they kind of walked away, and it felt like this was going to take maybe months to resolve? Like, what did you think about all of that?
Yeah, honestly, my first reaction was feeling a little confused, because I was like, well, just last week seemed like things were not going well. So it was definitely really good to hear. And of course, every time I'm crossing my fingers, hoping that it's going to be a signal of the end. 100 days. It almost seems, of course, it was a plan to like, oh, the 100th day, now we're finally going to get our stuff together and figure this out. But it's been felt, I think, by so many for so long that it's been 100 days too many. It's like this, and it's frustrating. It's like we're relying on the leaders on both sides to figure this out. And so when they do take these breaks, it really just impacts everyone so much. I even saw comments like, oh, of course it's Tuesday. They can't even do it on the Monday. Like, I think everyone's just really ready for this to be done, be history, and move on. But at the same time, like, we do want to get the resolution that's going to benefit us as well as, actors and for those in the industry. So it's hard, like really wanting it to end, but also wanting to get what we deserve as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the residuals, of course, the conversation also the other big talking point was AI and getting a really strong structure around how AI's effect on the industry and would, be controlled and regulated so that, actors' likenesses can't just be, used to no end without their permission. And certainly if they are to use their likeness with the help of AI, the actors should be compensated accordingly. And I think that's where the studios have to, at this point, provide
I was
yeah,
just
sorry.
gonna say, they need to watch the Black Mirror episode because that's exactly what happens. And
Exactly.
We were referencing that last week too. Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's a slippery slope, and it's no secret that throughout history, and I mean, Hollywood is known for its creative accounting. They're like, and in general, like in any business, if there's a loophole somewhere in the language of the contract that you're a part of, and you can take advantage of it and to be, do something in your favor, and then maybe flip the odds in your favor, whether it's to make money or whatever the other means, people do it. The companies do it all the time, and Hollywood is no different. So yeah, I think it's very important for actors to take a stand on this, and they have been taking a stand, and hopefully not only will we get a resolution on the residual side of things, but also with the AI issue.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about this in the coming days. I just wanted to kind of get you guys' thoughts about, there was this other thing that happened over the course of this past week where a bunch of high profile actors, like led by George Clooney, basically like got on the call with SAG-AFTRA's negotiation team, or like their leadership, and basically they were saying, hey, like here's a proposal. Let's kind of remove the caps for contributions to the union so that people like George Clooney and such, like all these A-list stars who make a lot more money, can make higher contributions, and therefore help like the people who are up and coming, just getting into the union, get further in their career and find financial stability that much faster. And then Fran Drescher kind of had a response to that. She also had like an op-ed in Deadline this week where she kind of talked about this further, that it's not entirely possible because of certain federal regulations. So Angelina, like, can you give us a little bit of insight onto how that is all played out, and is that even a possibility? Because it seems like the best of intentions, but may not be possible.
No, absolutely. And I mean, so it was, George Clooney, Meryl Streep, Jennifer Aniston, and like 10 other huge A-list celebrities all sort of popped on the Zoom call and proposed this 3-year plan to sort of fill the SAG-AFTRA coffers over the course of 3 years with $150 million that could be used towards aid for SAG members that needed it, because currently SAG's running a little low on money. Money, as we all are. But unfortunately, Fran Drescher sort of pointed out that as a federal accredited union, we are not allowed to sort of change people's, despite the fact that they make way more money, substantially more money than what B-list actors or C-list or D-list or just any average actor. Unfortunately, they can't do a pay, like they can't remove the caps to the dues just based off of like federal regulations, which makes sense, right? So it's like, it was very well mannered, well intentioned, but I think you also had a really good point. Is this George Clooney spearheading this in order to possibly run for SAG politics in the near future? So it's interesting. You brought it up and it hadn't even crossed my mind, and I literally was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It would make sense that he would try to be involved in this strike in some sort of way in order to sort of leverage himself for the future. But I don't know. I wouldn't want to be the SAG-AFTRA president. I wouldn't want to do that. I'm like, why do people want to do that?
It's not an enviable position to be in. Certainly because, like, for example, like you're gonna have to do another round of negotiations for the next deal in 3 years' time. This is like a constant battle, like to kind of make sure you're keeping up with the studios and you're representing, all of your peers. And I this is not the first time that people have speculated based on like certain actors doing certain things in the public eye to kind of maybe position themselves for a possible run at the SAG president role. Of course, we know Fran Drescher only recently just got reelected. So, and it's kind of like one of those things where, like during World War II, the U.S. like voted the same president in 3 terms because there were like stability over, something like different because we're in a state of war. And it's not, I'm not to compare World War II to the SAG-AFTRA strike, but I'm just saying as an analogy, when Fran Drescher's team, or maybe if, or hopefully when, like leads the union through what are gonna be probably the fiercest negotiations they've done in decades. I mean, the last time something like this happened, when the writers and actors went on strike together, Ronald Reagan was the president of SAG, and we know that he eventually became the president of the United States. So it's certainly a
maybe
position.
That's what George Clooney is trying to make a run at. Okay,
so maybe that's so maybe
he's president of the United States.
So what you're saying is that George Clooney is playing 3D chess while Fran Drescher's playing, checkers here.
Yes.
Like he's already like thinking 3 moves ahead.
POTUS, it's me. 15 years.
See, first, I'll get to the SAG-AFTRA deal, the union president, and then I'll negotiate the next deal, and I'll do it so much better. And then a few years after that, I'll make a run for the president of the United States. Lot of
Ronald Reagan can do it.
You know what I was thinking? Like throughout the course of this strike, we have seen actors like, for example, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, like donate millions of dollars to like funds to help support the union members who were striking, to kind of be able to keep up with their expenses and such, and even like their health benefits and such. Why not just take that 150 million they're pledging to SAG directly and put it into such a fund? Because here's the thing, this, like I said, these contract negotiations are not something that happens like once every 10 years. It's not like the census. This is something that we'll come back to probably in 3 years again.
Yeah.
So it's not, and those 3 years will go by really quickly. So, and of course, these $150 million is being committed to over the course of 3 years to begin with. Why not just put it towards this fund? Because those kind of funds, I think, should be they should exist and be well funded, like all the time, because I don't think this is the last strike. And certainly if they stay funded, because here's the thing, even if there's not an active strike, there's always members of SAG, like the majority of the union, the majority of the actors who are part of SAG don't make a living wage from their union jobs. Like they do, like you guys can speak to it, like Bridget, like you're still just starting out, but like you probably know a lot of people, and just your experience alone, like tell us like how, because I know that there's a lot of actors out there who are part of SAG, but they'll take non-SAG roles, or like certainly once they have other day jobs, and it's a struggle, right?
It is, yeah. Yeah, because right now I'm SAG eligible, which is kind of the best position to be in. Luckily at this point where I can join SAG if I want to, but I'm still able to work on other projects, of course. But yeah, I know a lot of my friends have found it difficult because you are pigeonholed. And right now, really, it's like commercials. That's all I've heard. Is like commercials is the one thing that's safe to do. But yeah, it does put a lot of people in a really tricky position, because it's like, well, my source is now, that one source is completely depleted. So they're now turning to other things, other ways to make money, still acting related, but just that is now okay to do. Maybe taking commercial classes and figuring out a different avenue for themselves.
Yeah. And Angelina, do you think it would be valuable to have these kind of, these funds to give a safety net to actors in the union, even at times when we're not in the middle of a strike? Because it's not there, there's union members who are struggling to make a living wage, even when, there are a lot of the A-listers and the higher ups in the organization are pretty well off. Like, do you think there's a value to these funds moving forward? And what do you think about the idea, like take that 150 million and put it towards one of those things if you can invest it directly into SAG itself?
Politics. I think that's the only reason why they wouldn't do it like that. A lot of actors have tried to either pay rents directly, or like donate to funds helping people, or pay for like their grippers on teams and like on previous sets and stuff like that. So there have been a lot of people that have tried to make direct contributions. I think this overall $150 million deal is probably the biggest one. The only reason I can see them not wanting to do that is politically activated. I just can't see why they would pitch this idea and then not want to just like put it towards the fund. So, I mean, maybe they still will, but I there has to probably be some sort of backhand reason for why they wouldn't want to do that.
So are you implying that this was done to there be like almost like a PR benefit to the actors doing this in this very specific like manner directly with SAG, rather than just maybe setting up their own fund or contributing to another one that already is pre-existing?
And I don't want to be a pessimist in the sense and be like, yeah, that's absolutely what they're doing. It's all a big PR scam. No, there's no way for me to know that, but it does seem really unlikely that they would pitch this amount of money and this amount of celebrities trying to then do this thing if they would have done research, they would have known it was illegal. You know what I mean? It seems just a little.
Yeah, it's not like they just all of a sudden like they were on like a call, like what two of them, maybe George Clooney was talking to one of his friends. He was like, "Oh, that's a good idea."
George Clooney like banded together like 20 A-list celebrities.
Yeah, let me get on the call with this other person.
Three-year plan to donate $150 million. It seems like there has to be an underlying reason for that versus giving direct help with that $150 million. But we're not saying that they won't still do that, right? They could, maybe they truthfully just didn't know that they weren't allowed to donate that money.
It's very possible.
You know what I mean?
Like, it feels like you're right. It feels like an effort like this wouldn't be something that comes together just overnight. And maybe this has been going on for a while. Maybe they put it on hold, but then when the talks broke down a week ago, they were like, okay, well, man, maybe now is the time to kind of make this move because for all we know, they probably thought, well, a lot of us thought that now we're going to be in the middle of this for another few months before we even get back to the table. Yeah. So I'm sure that maybe was the intention, and regardless of whether they were aware, whether this was even possible or not. I mean, like I said, my argument is, look, if you were going to make that commitment anyway, then and you've already sort of like made that pledge, then
publicly pledge the money, then put it where your mouth is. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
In their defense, maybe too, they think, of course, actors on all levels want the strike to end so they can go on press first, they can continue filming and all this stuff. So I feel like it might be in their interest too. They think, hey, if we can help support SAG a little more when they go into negotiations, if they feel like this is going to help, that it might just move things quicker.
That's possible too. Yeah. That's possible. Now, of course, like this, a lot of this transpired before we heard that the studios called SAG back and was like, hey, we're ready to get back to the negotiation table. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of developments on this. We've tried to kind of cover all sides of the story. I'm sure there's more to it than what we've even been able to talk about. So guys, let us know in the comments, what are your thoughts on the resumption of talks between SAG and the AMPTP? Will the studios and the actors be able to strike a deal this time? It looks like, the big CEOs, all the big wigs are going to be there. Similar situation to what we had with the writers and the WGA. And they kind of took about a week to, nonstop negotiations, and they hammered out a deal. They got it ratified, and writers are back to work. And hopefully we'll get a similar resolution to this. We're getting into the holiday season. So I certainly hope if we get another stalemate, because, well, not hope, but I feel like if we get another stalemate, then we'll, at this point, might be just stuck for a while because everybody's going to want to, be on vacation and Christmas and Thanksgiving and everything, which would be that much worse for, the actors who won't have work. So I hope that for everybody's sake, for the sake of the economy, for the sake of the actors, for the sake of all the people whose projects are shut down because the actors are striking. And of course, even the writers, so I'm sure there's a lot of writers back to work, but a lot of writers who can't go back to work because their show is shut down because of the actors strike. So I certainly hope that, and I'm sure we all hope that this gets resolved soon. Let us know in the comments what you think. And of course, as always, if you're going to be on the picket line, stay hydrated, Do take care of yourself, and let us know if you have any interesting experience to share. We're going to be here talking about this as it develops, and maybe hopefully in a week's time we'll have the news that we got a deal, and if not, then we'll bring you the latest updates from the negotiations. Until then, like and subscribe for more content like this.